everyone, and welcome back. Today we are looking at the Badger. So this is from our 1991 series. Um, the Badger was first released in the U.S. in 1991, and unfortunately was discontinued in 1992. The mold was reused in 1993 to help create the Crimson Cruiser. Note the tires for the Badger are shared with the Bug and the Scorpion, and are interchangeable among all three vehicles. Good thing to know for anyone that is looking for some way to replace them. A frontline attack Jeep with working rear suspension. Another one of those kind of fun upgrades that they've done with some of the vehicles. Exactly what I would use this to replace, I'm not exactly certain. Seeing that, when we went from some of the older vehicles, we were actually meant to have two characters in there, and in this, it's really down to about one. And you'll kind of see a little resemblance of that when we get other into looking at our stats here that I've kind of come up with. Uh, but we have to start off with some nice pictures here from yojo.com. One of the things that we do not have is we do not have any spots back here um, shown for holding anyone. So it really looks more, I guess, maybe three people, two passengers, either one on either side, but we're losing a little extra carrying capacity unless there's someone that can actually stand up in the little bit of a bed that we have here. Um, it's kind of hard to say not having this physically in hand, but just looking at it, I have this roughly about, I think, like 20 feet long or so. Um, it might be a little longer than what it really should be. Okay, so looking down, we do have a spot where someone can stand next to the driver. I'm sure that there's one on the other side next to the missiles. Um, it does not really look like there's a spot for them to stand in the back, and this is up here, I believe, for a working suspension. Having a nice kind of uh, isometric front view, and another one from the other angle here. And then the rear views. Okay, so it does show someone standing on the side. Looking at it in this regard, this might be closer to what we would think of for a UTV in today's day and age. Um, but not 100% certain. This definitely looks beefed up in comparison to what we've had for a lot of other vehicles here. Um, just kind of going through, and there we are. Okay, what else do we have? Easily lost and or broken pieces. The missiles for the Badger are easily lost and should not be mistaken for similarly colored missiles such as those from the Mudbuster and the Ice Snake. The flag is also easily lost. Now, this has also been featured in the DIC as well as Impel. Looks like comic books here. Okay, now we get to see here. Now, this is a smaller vehicle. Maybe I'm a little off on the size. Maybe this should be a smaller vehicle in a lot of regards. Looking at it in one view, it looks like it's a lot bigger vehicle, and then you look at it in another, and it looks like it's a much smaller vehicle. So I'll leave the size alone for what I have, but if you feel you need to change it, by all means do so. It's just kind of unclear exactly how big this should really be. No variations of the Badger are known to exist, according to Yojo.com here. Um, this was retooled for nothing else. Well, it did say that it was reissued as the 93 Crimson Cruiser, so just do keep that in mind here. And at original retail, this was $4.49. It's not bad for getting a little vehicle. Um, just kind of taking it from there. All right, well, let's get into our stats and see what I've come up with. And then, we can kind of go over. It's just the size of this that I'm just on the fence. I don't know what I should really keep it as. So that's really where I'm hemming and hawing on, not really knowing exactly how big this should be. So let's get into our stats and see what we have. All right, so as you can see, there's not a lot of stats that I actually have here. So the Badger Bean speeder scale, I do have it listed at 20 feet. Now, this is the part that just kind of worries me because I'm sitting here wondering if it is closer to a UTV, it probably should be a little bit smaller. I would say maybe about half the size, maybe even just 12 feet or so. But I'm just going to leave it as is. Crew of one, passengers of two. Now, we do have a cargo capacity of 45 kilograms. Actually, let me kind of, you know what, I'm just going to change this up. We're going to make it about 12 feet long, much like that of a UTV. Cargo capacity, um, we're going to give it 300 pounds. Oops. Um, I'm going to just change this to LBS, 300 pounds. Oops. All right. Of course, I always give this a full coverage. Ground speed maneuverability is going to be a 2D. Being smaller than that, let's give it a little bit better maneuverability. Probably a 2D plus 2. Um, and I'm going to change the speed. We're going to give it about a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. And the reason why I'm doing that is, please forgive me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of the UTVs that I know of, once we're looking at it like a 1000 series, we're going roughly about 60 miles an hour. So just keeping it at a respective amount there, um, I think is really well worth it. But the other thing is we have a body strength here listed as a 4D. This thing does look beefed up to me. So in that regard, if this is a smaller kind of a UTV-ish vehicle, but it is heavily armored, going 60 miles an hour is still pretty impressive. The other thing I wanted to take away here is we have a heavy missile launcher, kind of front uh, front turret, I guess. I guess it is kind of turreted, so we'll change it to turret or front turret. All right, and it is at Walker scale. To me, this looks like we are trying to put a TOW missile launcher on top of this vehicle. So it can shoot one missile, has a fire control of 3D plus 1, and it does 7D damage at Walker scale. Our TOW missile launcher is actually the same missile that we're throwing on the Bradley fighting vehicle, and that's why I'm kind of familiar with it. And we're using that to take out tanks. So I think that's fitting. And looking at this, it looks like it's got a rack for 3 missile reloads. Um, a small vehicle like this to try and get people into combat, 3 reloads for a heavy weapon on a small vehicle like this is really very respectable. Um, there's no other weapon that was really listed on this, so that's my take on it. If you feel that it should just, I'm not even going to throw in there the reloading aspect of it, which isn't the funnest. Um, but just seeing, hey, we do have something that's light, um, fairly affordable, heavily armored, and able to move personnel or whatever in a combat sense up to the battlefield is pretty respectable. Um, the UTVs and that are getting to be more of a useful tool in the military because they are small, lightweight, and inexpensive. Um, so, for that purpose alone, it is very easy to see the military trying to figure out a way to use these things tactically, um, to cheaply beef up the military, really, um, as people movers, especially in desert terrain. Now, once we get into woodland terrain and all that stuff, there's a lot of just you're kind of stuck with being on foot, having to walk through it. But when you have a desert terrain, a nice big open terrain, you want something that can just kind of move you down um, from one area to another because you can see everything around you. That's why they work so very well in that field of combat. Um, yeah, we're going to want to use them elsewhere. Um, for a squad support vehicle, to see it in that regard, even if everybody's got one, if one breaks down, I mean, you can have extra supplies there. You can keep people going out in the field a little bit longer, a little easier. It does help. So, with that being said, I think this really works very well. It fits a very small niche that we kind of lost when we lost the old Willys Jeep. Today's Humvee, which is actually getting outdated and is being replaced by another vehicle, a bigger vehicle. These are bigger vehicles all in all. Getting back down to a small vehicle again, much like what we had with the old Jeep, does make a lot of sense. They weren't the fastest vehicle in the world, but it had a significant towing capability as well as the ability to possibly have four people on there with a standard configuration, maybe even up to six. So, this does have a very small bed, much like a lot of UTVs. So let's just kind of say this is an early take on a UTV in a military sense. So, with that being said, I think we have a good grasp on this. It is a shorter video because this isn't an overly complicated vehicle. It doesn't have all these extra parts breaking off into all the different vehicles like we've seen in the past. Um, but having a simple vehicle with a pretty significant weapon system on board is pretty remarkable. So let's just leave it at that and just have fun with it. So, with that, thank you so very much for joining me today. It's always wonderful having you here. I hope you're doing well, and I will see you in the next video.